Welcome to this webinar. My name is Natalie from Orchid Systems, and today Anne and I will share some tips to get started and use Process Scheduler to automate Sage 300 processes. Do you need Process Scheduler? Do you rely on operations staff to manually kick off recurring processes such as running data integrity checks, doing backups, doing day-end processing, and to ensure they complete without incidents? Is your business being exposed to human error, performance degradation, resource conflicts, and staff downtime due to critical processes being manually executed during working hours? And would you appreciate the peace of mind and convenience of having key processes automatically scheduled and the efficiency of having them run unattended during off-peak hours while being notified if something goes wrong? These are some of the key questions to ask to see how Process Scheduler can add value to your business, and we would argue that this applies to most Sage 300 sites in one form or another. So with Process Scheduler, you can run your critical Sage 300 recurring processes automatically. You can run repetitive tasks within one or across companies, for example, your day-end posting system batches. You can run these processes unattended in off-peak hours, and you can configure the email notifications that you get when the process is run or if there's an issue with the process, and you can read detailed logging if something has gone wrong. It is very often combined with other Orchid modules such as Report Runner to run Crystal reports and Sage 300 General Ledger financial reports, with Info Explorer to refresh and distribute cubes with different parameters and send them to the relevant stakeholders such as warehouse managers or salespeople, and with Extender to run scripts for time-based alerts or notification or to trigger some integration to other systems. Process Scheduler is available in 3 different levels. You can view more details about the different actions in the different levels on the Orchid website. We'll just note that the levels are cumulative, so if you have level 3, if you need one of the level 3 action, you only purchase level 3. You don't need to buy level 1 and 2 and 3. And if you have level 1 and you want to upgrade to level 2 to run your day-end and your posting actions, you just need to purchase the upgrade and enter the new activation code, and then the new actions will be available. You don't need to install other software. Process Scheduler is particularly convenient when you're running multiple databases within Sage 300. And as you're probably aware, Sage 300 is very often used to manage complex finances for multiple companies. And on average, Sage 300 sites have 8 entities, and the largest has over 800 entities. A lot of these companies use inter-entity transactions and inter-entity trade to help automate transactions between multiple Sage 300 companies. And Process Scheduler is a very useful tool for all these companies. It will help reduce the need to log in and the number of clicks for all these processes like posting batches, open and closing fiscal period. With the use of Extender, you could even run your GL revaluation batches across multiple companies. And because it helps you manage your exceptions and run your reports across databases, it gives you increased visibility. And you can all run this outside of business hours. So just before we start on the demonstration, these are some of the actions that you can access, and once you've configured Process Scheduler, basically it runs by itself unattended, but in most cases you schedule this in Windows Task Scheduler. It's going to be running unattended, so a lot of the questions, the support questions and the tips around Process Scheduler are really around how to set it up. So this is going to be the focus on this presentation. So we will basically follow the steps that are described in the training video and available on the online help, which you can access from the application and from the Orchid website. And basically this is what we're going to be doing, the steps to get started. I'm now going to hand over to Anne to demonstrate the steps to get started with Process Scheduler.
In this Process Scheduler Quick Start video, we're going to download, install and activate Process Scheduler. We're then going to check our Process Scheduler license and then do the configuration we need to set up Process Scheduler. We're going to configure the Process Scheduler options, the Process Scheduler companies, and the email messages that we're going to use in our schedules. We're then going to create a day-end schedule, and the day-end schedule is also going to post the batches that result from the day-end. It's going to run across multiple companies. So per company, we're going to do a day-end and post batches. And once we've tested that schedule, we'll go ahead and configure the Windows Task Scheduler to run that schedule. To download Process Scheduler, you go to orchid.systems, log in, and then go to the product downloads. Select the version you want, and then download Process Scheduler. And once downloaded, you can run the install shield. And then connect to the company where you're going to activate Process Scheduler. This company must be the company where you're going to store all your schedules. Although you can run a schedule across multiple companies, you activate in one company only, and this is the company where the schedules are saved and the logs are saved. And having activated, you go to the Process Scheduler options, and you can check your license. You could enter your serial number here and activation code if you had installed for 30 days initially. The first setup you need to do is in Process Scheduler options. On the Processing tab, you fill in the credentials for the user to read the schedules. In our case, we're using admin and the admin's password. And then you store the company or select the company where the schedules are going to be stored. In our case now, Sample Company Limited. And I'm going to get a warning because I'm switching my active from my previous database that I was using. On the Email tab, you fill in your email server details, and this enables Process Scheduler to be able to send emails when it runs. Test your email settings. And save your options. In Process Scheduler companies, you need to specify a user ID and password for all those companies that you're going to write schedules for. So I'm going to have schedules for O11 and for Orc Ltd. and for the existing company, SAM Ltd. And the final setup I'm going to do are 2 email messages, one when the schedule is run, and one when there's been an error in the schedule. You can use these other variables depending on your schedule. And to save time, I'm just going to copy and paste the email body from the schedule ran email. Using the Process Scheduler visual process flow for setting up Process Scheduler, we have activated Process Scheduler in SAM Ltd. We are using admin as the user for Process Scheduler and as the user for all the other target companies for our schedules. So our security has been set up. We set up SAM Ltd in the Process Scheduler setup on the Processing tab. We configured our email server on the Email tab, and we've created the email templates that we want to use. We've also entered the user ID and password to be used in the companies that we're going to create schedules for. So now we need to go ahead and create our schedules. The first schedule we're going to create is the one for day ends and for posting the batches. And we always want to send an email to alert us when the schedule has run. And the message ID we're going to do is the schedule ran. Our first step is going to work in company O11. and using the Detail tab, our first step is going to be to run an IC day end in O11 and to log any errors in this folder. If there's an error, we want to go to step 10 and we want to send an email saying that there has been an error. If it's successful, we want to go to step 5. We won't need to send an email, and step 5 will be posting the batches in O11. So all system batches are the batches that result from the day end. If there's an error in this, we want to go to step 15 and send an email that there has been an error. If there's not an error, we still want to go to step 15 and do the same for the next company. So step 10, run an IC day end. And we can use the same log file. If there's an error in this, we're going to go to step 20 and send the email that there's been an error. Otherwise, we're going to go to step 15, which will be to post. If this is an error, we're going to go to step 20 and send the schedule error email. If it's successful, we're still going to go to step 20, which is going to be to run for the third company. And we're going to run an IC day end for SAM Ltd. Use the same log path. If there's an error, we're going to stop and send an email. If it's successful, we're going to go to step 25, which is going to be posting the system batches in SAM Ltd. If there's an error, we're going to send an email, but there's no next step. Your schedule can have multiple paths depending on the success or the failure steps, and 0 terminates the schedule. You can test your schedule by clicking Run here, and this tests both your setup is correct in Options on the Processing tab, that the companies are defined in Process Scheduler companies, and will run through all the actions that you've set up. When running from the Schedule screen, the status or the log will be displayed on the screen once the processing has finished. And you can review the log here. And clicking on the audit log shows you all the actions that have been taken for this schedule. Ran the IC day end in O11, posted all system batches, IC day end in Orc Ltd, posted all system batches, and the IC day end in SAM Ltd, and posted all system batches. And then it sent the email. The status will give you whether it was successful or failure, and depending the type of action, if there are errors, you can drill into the log if that action creates a log. And the final thing is to set up the schedule in your Windows Task Scheduler. In your Windows Task Scheduler, create a task. Specify that you want to run this whether the user is logged in or not, and you will need to specify the network user to use to start the task. The action is going to be to start a program to run from your Sage programs directory. OZ is the 2-letter code for Process Scheduler. You select the Oz Integrity Check program and the parameter to pass in the schedule ID. The trigger is when you want to run, so we're going to run daily at 10 p.m. And this is the network user to use. And this network user needs the read-write access to the Sage shared data directory so it can run the programs. And we can run this now, or it will schedule at 10 p.m. every night. We have just seen how to download, install, and activate Process Scheduler, how to check the license. We've run through the configuration of Process Scheduler options, Process Scheduler companies, and the email messages needed. And then we created a day-end schedule to run across 3 companies that ran the day-end and posted the resulting day-end batches. And then we saw how to test the schedule and how to configure the Windows Task Scheduler to schedule this on a set schedule. We're now going to have a look at another schedule to open fiscal periods per module. The schedule is still going to run across multiple companies, and it's going to open multiple modules periods for AR and OE in all our 3 companies. We're going to create a new schedule called Open AR OE. Again, we're always going to send an email when it runs, and the message ID is going to be our schedule ran. Step number 1, company 011, and this time we're going to choose a level 3 action to open the next closed period. And looking at our detail, with this action we can either say for all modules or we can include an individual module. So we're going to do accounts receivable, and depending whether it's successful or not, we're going to try and open OE. If it's not successful, we're going to give the normal error message that an error occurred. Step number 5, open the next closed period for 011, and this one's for OE. Send an email if there's an error, and so on until we have the open next closed period for Orc Limited, for AR and order entry, and for SAM Limited for AR and order entry. And to test if it runs, we can see all the actions and look at the audit log. It's run for 011, Orc Limited, SAM Ltd, and all the steps were successful. And now you would schedule this schedule using the Windows Task Scheduler, maybe on the 25th or the 28th of every month, to open for the future months. We have just seen our open OEAR schedule, how it can run across multiple companies and open the next fiscal period for multiple modules. And the next schedule we're going to have a look at is to run data integrity checks across multiple companies. And after running the integrity check, we're going to run another action to clear the old logs, because data integrity checks which are over 90 days old are probably no longer relevant. So the first step per company is going to run the data integrity check for all the modules, and the second step per company is going to clear the data integrity logs which are over 90 days old. This new schedule we're going to call data integrity check and clear. We're always going to send an email. Step number 1, in our company 011, we're going to check all modules integrity. Select to fix errors. Create our log path. And choose the option to send the full log of all the integrity errors. Whether there's errors or not, we're going to go to the next step to clear. After adding our 3 companies, the check modules integrity and then the clear the integrity logs after 90 days, when those logs are over the 90 days old, we can add the schedule and give it a test run. Check integrity and clear data integrity logs are level 1 process scheduler actions. And there's 2 different actions, one to check an individual module's integrity and one to check all the currently active modules within the company, which is what we're doing here. Normally the schedule would be scheduled overnight, so I'm just going to speed up the process as it is doing a data integrity check across all modules in these 3 companies. When being run from the process scheduler screen, the log is displayed, or if it's too large, you can open up the log and you can see the full history of that's being run, but it's also being audited and is in the detail log. So we can see the actions that ran per company, and we can drill into the last process scheduler error log, in this case for tax services. But all the integrity logs would have been saved in the appropriate directories. And were there any logs older than 90 days old, they would have been cleared from the directory. With data integrity checks, you can opt to only send emails if there's errors. And then on the individual tasks, you can say send an email, but only if there's a change in the number of errors. So if there's always one error in tax services, you won't get an email the second time the integrity check is run. And if it doesn't change from that one error, then you won't receive any emails again. We have seen how you can set up a data integrity check schedule, which will check all the modules integrity within a company and then clear down the logs of the old integrity checks afterwards. And we've tested that schedule too.
Let's now have a look at some common setup questions for Process Scheduler. First, where can I find the online help?
There are 2 ways you can access the online help. Firstly, through the F1 help. At the top of every page, we have a link to the online help. Or if you go to our website, through the resources, online help, you can access all the modules this way too. The process scheduler is here.
Can I view detail logs in Process Scheduler?
Yes, in the schedule screen, for any of your schedules, you always have the history of the schedule running. So when you first open the screen, you will see the last time it ran. So these are individual module integrities in Orc Limited, and I can see the last time it was run, there was one error in the bin tracking module, and if you click on the open, it will take you to that particular error. And this was the last time the schedule was run. But if you go to the audit log, you will see all the times that it has run in the date range that you have entered. So if I go from an early date range, I'll see the schedules running in 2021 and again in 2023. And then on any of the instances, you can always click on the detail to see the individual detail of that integrity check and the log that was recorded at that time.
Can I run schedules in multiple companies?
Yes, you can have schedules that run across multiple companies. So in this schedule, for example, we're doing a database dump in Orc Limited, Orc Inc. 2, 3, 4, and we're also dumping OrcSys. So you can run schedules across multiple companies. But all these schedules are being stored in our current database in Orc Limited. You do not need to activate Process Scheduler in each one of the companies. You only activate it in the company where you want to store the schedules. And then in your options, the company that you fill in on the processing tab, this is the company that you're storing the schedules in. So when the task scheduler runs, it knows which company to open up to find the schedules. And then those schedules can go across multiple companies.
Is there a visual process flow to set up schedules?
Yes, there is a process scheduler setup visual process flow, and you can see it steps you through all the different options that you need to do to set up these schedules. And a reminder that you need to first of all assign the custom process flows to your users. So you need to assign a visual process flow to a user. And here we have selected the Orchid's visual process flows for all the Orchid modules.
Can I email out of Process Scheduler if I'm using Office 365?
Yes, in Process Scheduler options on the Email tab, this is where you configure your Process Scheduler emails. If you're using Office 365, you can fill in the Office 365 server details and send via SMTP to Office 365, but that only works if basic authentication is not turned off. If you have turned off basic authentication, then you need to select Microsoft Graph. And in the F1 help, you'll find information on setting up Office 365 either when you're using SMTP or Microsoft Graph. And also you can set up Office 365 with multi-factor authentication.
Does Process Scheduler support complex password in Sage Security? And a related question, does Process Scheduler support Sage 300 version 2023 PU3 with the latest changes in security?
Yes, Process Scheduler does support complex passwords, and that is done in two places. One in Options on the Processing tab, where you fill in the user ID and password for you to run schedules. So this is the database, the user ID and password required to find the schedules to run. And in the latest PU, we have also put a check in here. So if I key in a password, which is incorrect, at the time of saving, it checks the password. So that's a nice time saver to validate that before you close the screen. And then you also have to save the user ID and password for all those companies that you want to run schedules in. And again, in this screen, when you type in the password, when it tries to save it, it will tell you if it's invalid.
Next, common support questions relate more to Windows Task Scheduler and upgrades. First question is, can I do some additional logging when running Windows Task Scheduler?
Yes, you can. So when you have set up your schedules in Windows Task Scheduler, for example, this one, Run Schedule, on the actions is where you say run the Process Scheduler programs directory, you run processscheduler.exe, and then you give the name of the schedule that you have entered in PS schedule. So in this case, it's check disk space. And then you can add additional parameters. So for example, we have added a parameter here saying log equals, and then we specify the name of a log file. So when we run this schedule, it will log each step to this text file. So if you know your schedule is failing at some stage, but you can't work out where or why, then you can always say log equals, and you specify the log file name, and then that file will have the steps for the log.
Can I run multiple schedules in one go?
In Windows Task Scheduler, you can only run one process schedule at a time. For example, check disk space. But in your schedule, your action could be run another schedule. And then you could have, for example, the check disk space schedule run, and then the last step it does, you go and run another schedule, and then on the details tab you would add the schedule that you want to run.
What do I need to do to upgrade Process Scheduler from one version of Sage 300 to another.
After installing the latest version or the new version of Process Scheduler, as you have done with System Manager and all the other modules, you would go into Admin Services and activate the latest version of Process Scheduler. You need to do this in the company where your schedules are being stored. But if you've ever done a test database, a dump and a load of your live database to a test database and have Process Scheduler active in that database too, you need to upgrade that one as well. So any database, there should only be one, but there might be two if you've done a test. Any database where Process Scheduler is active needs to be activated to the latest version of Process Scheduler. And after activating, it is advisable to go to your options on the Processing tab and rekey this password, especially if you've gone from a version of Sage which doesn't have complex passwords enabled to a version that does have complex passwords enabled, or it's mandatory. So that's in options, as well as for all the companies that you're running schedules for. You need to rekey this password. And then in your Windows Task Scheduler, if you're using the same server, you would go to all your tasks and you need to change the directory, because you will be picking up the Oz Process Scheduler exe no longer from the Oz 70A directory, but from the Oz 71 directory when we upgrade to 2024. So you need to pick up the latest version of Process Scheduler for the exe. And if you setting up Process Scheduler on a new server where you don't have these schedules anymore, you need to recreate these schedules and pick up the correct version of the Oz Process Scheduler.exe.
Finally, a question we get regularly is, can I upgrade from Process Scheduler level 1 to level 2 or level 3, and what's involved in that?
Yes, you can upgrade from level 1 to level 2 or level 3 or 2 to 3, and all you need to do is enter the new activation code that you have received into the license screen. So currently we're activated for Process Scheduler level 3, which includes 1 and 2 as well. But if this was level 1 and I keyed in a level 2 or level 3 activation code, the message here would show you which level you are now activated for.
We're now going to look at how to use Process Scheduler with other Orchid modules to automate report distribution and custom processes in Sage 300. There are a lot of details on this topic on the Orchid website on the Process Scheduler page. And reminder that this is not meant to be a detailed training video on using Report Runner or Info Explorer or Extender. Its focus is on using Process Scheduler with those modules. So we'll look at how to distribute Info Explorer cubes, scheduling crystal reports configured in Report Runner, scheduling GL financial reports also configured in Report Runner, and running extender scripts for exception management, alerts and notifications to progress a workflow and to automate further some Sage 300 tasks. When you use Process Scheduler with Info Explorer to distribute the cubes, Info Explorer being our business intelligence tool, which lets you do some analysis like a Power Pivot table on your Sage 300 data, you can automate the distribution and automatically send a refresh cube to team members on a regular basis. You can configure it to use their own parameters, so your data is secure. The users only see their own data. They can't refresh it. They access their cube that has been refreshed outside of business hours. They can also access it without logging on to Sage 300 if they're out of the office, on the road, at home, and have Info Explorer on their machine. They receive the cube in their emails and they can get their updated data. When you run a Process Scheduler with Report Runner, and we're going to start by looking at an example with a Crystal report and Process Scheduler level 1, you configure everything in each company where you want to run reports in. You work out what reports, what report parameters you're going to pass, who's going to receive the email, and how often it's run, daily, weekly, monthly. And then in a single company, you're going to configure your schedule, and the schedule is going to run and refresh all the reports when they're due to be run. And the details of how to set up Report Runner is in the Report Runner training video. Next, we're also going to look at configuring Process Scheduler with GL financial reports. Similarly, you configure your GL report options in Report Runner, and then you can do one schedule that will connect to each different company and run the different report groups that you've configured. With Process Scheduler, you can then choose which financial year and period you're going to run it for. You know, the next financial year and period for budgets, the previous period, the current period for your actual setup, where you save your files and who you're going to email. And then you can schedule all that with Windows Scheduler so that it's run out of hours.
We're going to have a look at the steps of using Process Scheduler with Report Runner and Info Explorer. We're going to briefly have a look at the Report Runner configuration for Crystal reports and financial reports in the two companies that we're going to schedule the reports for. And we also need to configure the Info Explorer cubes for the companies that we want the cubes to run in. And then we're going to create a custom schedule in Process Scheduler, and it's going to have 3 steps per company. The first step is going to be a level 1 action to run an Information Manager report, which will pick up and run all the Crystal reports that are scheduled to be run by now. A level 3 action, run Financial Report Group, which will run the nominated Financial Report Group and email and save as requested. And a level 1 action to refresh the Info Explorer cube. And we're going to have a look at this running in multiple companies, Orc Ltd and O11. In Orc Ltd, in IM Setup, in the options, we have configured the email for any emails being sent by Report Runner. And we've created any email messages that we want to send with our reports. And then for our Crystal Report Runner, we have added all the Crystal reports we want to our desktop, set the parameters for these reports, and specified those ones that we want to schedule and schedule when they're next going to be run. Similarly, for our financial reports, we can group them into groups. For example, Department 100 has these 3 reports, and we can add as many financial reports as we need, and we schedule these by report group. Similarly, in O11, we have configured our email messages to be sent with our reports. And in our analytical reports, we have scheduled any reports that we want to run and specified the schedule. And in our financial reports, we've created our groups of financial reports and attached those reports that belong to that group, and that's what we're going to schedule in Process Scheduler, a report group. In Process Scheduler, we have configured which company our schedules are stored in, and in companies, we have configured which companies we want to run schedules for, so in our case, O11 and Orc Ltd. Configured any email messages that we might use in these schedules, and then gone ahead to create our schedule. So this schedule is not going to send any email about the schedule running because there will be emails going from each of the individual steps. So in Orc Limited, we're going to run an Information Manager report. And this will run all the Crystal reports that have been scheduled to be run by now. And then in Orc Limited, we're going to run a financial report group, and we select the report group. So we're going to run all the reports in Department 100, passing in the current fiscal year and period, saying the format that we want this to be exported in, and where the file must be stored and who it must be emailed to. The third step is going to run this particular Info Explorer cube, and if needs be, it can pass in parameters and the email message template to go with the cube. And then we have 2 additional steps to run the crystal reports in O11 and the financial reports in O11. And to test the schedule, we can run it now. And just speeding up the process a little. And when run from the schedule screen, we get a summary of the actions that were taken and any error messages. But we also get those details on the audit log. They were all successful. And the crystal reports emailed from Orc Ltd were attached and emailed. The financial reports from Orc Ltd were attached and emailed. The Info Explorer cube was attached and emailed. And similarly for those crystal reports in O11 and financial reports in O11.
Finally, we can use Windows Task Scheduler to schedule the run reports schedule like we have seen before. In this presentation, we'll focus on using Process Scheduler Level 1 to run extender scripts. You can automate your Sage 300 tasks without user intervention, in particular to run across multiple companies in a single click. For example, you can run an extender script that will run the GL revaluation or the AP and AR revaluation across multiple companies without having to log on to each company. So you would set up, configure how you want to run your revaluation in a custom extender table, and then run the script across all the different company. Just receive an email notification if there was an issue in a particular company. Similarly, you can have scripts that will run reports that need some pre-processing, such as specific tech audit logger and funds availability report. They're not just a standard report, they're a report that require a Sage process to be run beforehand, and extender script can automate that process. You can also use extender scripts and process scheduler for time-based alerts and notifications, such as reminder of appointments scheduled in Service Manager, or sending reminders of expired subscriptions, which is an example we use internally, where we read details of customers stored in Sage 300, as well as their subscription details to our modules saved in CRM, and then we email the AR contact. You can also use Extender for exception management, particularly for the finance team across companies. For example, to run AP and AR aging, or to send a notification of unposted batches in various modules, as well as to run inter-entity error notification. And these are the examples that we're going to look at in more detail in this presentation. To set up Process Scheduler to run extender scripts, you need to configure extender in all the companies. The email setting, as in many cases, you're going to be emailing somebody. Then you would import the extender module, which will include the script, the message templates that go with the emails, and optionally custom tables to store some configuration parameters. While we are not looking at the detailed extender setup required or training on doing these scripts in this presentation, there are a few specific aspects of the scripts that you need to take into consideration when you're designing it to be run in Process Scheduler. You can't really expect user input when running it through Process Scheduler, as it's going to be unattended. However, you can configure parameters in Process Scheduler, and there is a way to retrieve those parameters in the script, which is documented in the knowledge base. Similarly, you wouldn't show message box in the screen, as they may hang when you're running that unattended. So you would save the detail logs that you need in a log file, generally in the shared data, and return errors if there are any, or a zero error count, so that it can be displayed in the process scheduler logs. And then you configure process scheduler, as with all the other scenarios we've looked at, only in the main company, to run the scripts that you need in whichever companies you need. In our example, we're going to look at running AR aging and an inter-entity audit log notification in two companies, Orc Ltd and O11.
We're going to have a look at Process Scheduler for some custom actions. And we're going to run some custom actions in both Orc Limited and O11. And for this, we need to configure Extender in Orc Limited and O11, configure the emails so we can send emails of the notifications. We need to load the email templates, and we need to load the scripts that are the alerts and notifications. And if the scripts need configuration, entries in the table, then we need to do that as well. And once Extender is loaded and configured in all the companies that we want to run these notifications and alerts, then you go to your Process Scheduler company and you create a schedule. The action is to run an Extender script. You select the company and the script that you want to run, and then you have as many rows for as many companies and scripts that you want to run. And we're going to go ahead and create such a schedule, test the schedule, and then schedule it using the Windows Task Scheduler. In Orc Ltd, the first company where we're going to schedule some notifications and alerts, we need to do our Extender configuration. We need to configure our email server so we can send emails with the notifications. We need to create the message templates to be sent with our notifications. And we need to import the module or the scripts. And we're going to be scheduling two scripts. One, a script which alerts us if there are any entries in any of the IET audit trails. And a second script to run the AR aging and send us a list of all those customers who have aging buckets in the buckets that we configure for. And we're also going to run those same scripts in O11. So in our Extender setup, we've configured our email. In our message templates, we have defined the messages that we want to go with the AR aging and with the IE audit logs. And we've imported the scripts for the IET audit entry, audit log entries, and the AR aging. And finally, in SAM Ltd, the company where we store our schedules, we have configured the processing tab to say that we're storing our schedules in SAM Ltd, the email tab to get any emails from Process Scheduler. In our companies, we have configured O11 as well as Orc Limited. And then we go ahead and create our schedule. So for our daily notification schedule, we're only going to send an email, the notification error email, if any errors occur in the schedule. And then we've got 4 steps in our schedule. The first one running in Orc Limited. It runs an Extender script. This is a level 1 action. It sends an email on error, and it runs in the company Orc Ltd. And the script that it runs is a finder into Orc Ltd scripts. So the script was loaded in Orc Ltd, and then we fill in any parameters that we may need. In this case, the message ID to use and the email, where the email is to be sent. And then, still in Orc Ltd, we're running an Extender script, and this time we're running the AR aging script with the AR aging parameters, which allows you to select only those customers which have a balance in buckets 2, 3, and 4, or 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the IET audit listing from 011 and the AR aging from 011. So if we want to run this script now, we can click the Run button, and it will go ahead, log into each of those companies, and execute the script, one after the other. And because I'm running from the schedule screen, I will see a summary of any errors that have happened or what was executed. No errors happened. And I also get those details in the audit log. So I've run it a few times, but down towards the bottom, you will see the last run that we've just done. Orc Limited, the IET audit error log, the status, which was okay, a drill down to the error log if your script creates an error log, and a copy of the email that was sent. And then Orc Limited running the AR aging, status okay, drill down to the error log, and a copy of the AR aging email sent. And then same again in 011. And if we want to schedule that daily notifications, we would go to our task scheduler.
Thanks, Anne, for this presentation on scheduling extended scripts using Process Scheduler. And we looked at example of running 2 scripts in 2 companies, and there's a lot of detail in the Extender online help with training and more information on how to write scripts in general and specifically write scripts for Process Scheduler. For more information on Process Scheduler, you can refer to the Orchid website, orchid.systems. Thank you for your time, and we are now ready for questions.